All right, welcome everyone to Archivematica Campfire Stories. I'm Courtney Muma, Deputy Director of the Texas Digital Library, and today's webinar is brought to you by the Archivematica Texas Users Group, or A-TEX as they like to call themselves. Today we'll have several speakers talking about their experiences using Archivematica. This is building on the Archivematica Camp that the University of Houston generously hosted about a year ago, last November. And so we'll be getting some updates and also some news stories. And then we'll have Sarah Romkey from Artefactual Systems speaking with us as well. And we'll have opportunities for questions from all of them. So first I want to just walk you through how to participate today using Adobe Connect. In the top left, you'll see the attendees pod with all of the hosts, presenters, and participants listed. In the middle left, we call that the chat pod, and that's where you can type in your questions at any point during today's presentation, and we'll make sure to ask them during the Q&A time. You can also leave comments, and you can direct message individuals in the call today. And then in the bottom left, you'll see our download pod, where you can actually download the slide deck that you're seeing right now. And these are shared from all of our presenters and from TDL. So with no further ado, here are our campfire stories. We're going to feature 4 speakers: Sean Buckner from Texas A&M University, Juliana Barrera-Gomez from the University of Texas San Antonio, Bethany Scott from University of Houston, and Lauren Goodley from Texas State University. Then we'll have a brief Q&A followed by a presentation from Sarah Romkey from Archivematica and Artefactual Systems up in cold Ontario, Canada. And I'll be moderating the Q&A today as well. So with that, let's go ahead and get started.
Okay, can you hear me? All right, can you hear me now?
Yep, you're good. Keep going.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm Sean Buckner, Texas A&M University Libraries, and in my short few minutes here, I want to talk about Archivematica being the cornerstone of our digital preservation program. And I have a little analogy I'll push kind of hard, maybe it'll work or not, but it was for us a groundbreaking. It's foundational for what we're doing now, and then constructive in a way that we're trying to construct something for the future. Moving on. So 2015 was a groundbreaking year. Digital preservation program was established at Texas A&M University. We didn't have anything before, so there's a lot of survey and assessment. What do we have? Where is it? And so forth. Fairly quickly chose Archivematica to be our digital preservation platform, and it fit what we do here at A&M perfectly. So we gathered tools and resources, and we made preparations and initial plans for our program. And then 2016 was kind of our foundation year, where we were conceptualizing the work and doing the documentation, blueprints, as you might call it, coordination and communication with other units and in the libraries and with others like TDL about our upcoming program. Archivematica was deployed, at least in a test instance initially, and tested extensively. I'll say tested not necessarily to test the system itself, but our ability to manage it and maintain it. And that was sort of like foundation has been laid there. So 2017 was kind of our cornerstone year, where Archivematica we started in production. So we were actually preserving things, yay. We developed some of the procedures that we currently are using, and of course made the connections to StirCloud at TDL for our cloud storage in our program. 2018, now I put in Masonry. The definition of Masonry, when we look it up, is really just constructing something big from little pieces or smaller parts. And so we'll call this Ape Masonry for 2018. We had Archivematica Camp, yay, we all had fun. But for us, it was kind of like laying one ape at a time. See the little apes on the little image, got a little distorted, but that's all right. You get the idea. And of course, we had issues with some problems. Of course, our problems deepened, pun intended, when we lost Deepen. But regardless, we're able to integrate Archivematica into at least our local infrastructure and move forward. So 2019, where we are finishing now, Archivematica became, continued with production. We upgraded to the newest version. We have at this point developed a larger, more robust digital preservation repository, a tiered system of the content that we ingest to Archivematica. We treat differently depending on what tier we consider it, and we have corresponding pipelines per se, and those, of course, are the workflows that we deal with. So looking at the little image on the side, we show some of the discovery platforms we use and some of the kind of the workflows, but I want to focus more on just the part that I deal with. So a lot of our work is done pre-Archivematica. Most of the actual work and curatory and the physical, or the digital work is done prior to actually ingesting Archivematica. So and what is ingested in Archivematica, I put that little lever there to show that I'm able to change the settings and destinations for the content depending on what I'm ingesting through Archivematica. And of course that is then correspondingly moved through either a sync process or batch uploads to its corresponding cloud storage location. And I did want to note one other thing here, that we currently have anything that goes to Archivematica as processed Archivematica is also stored in another local server, sort of an archival storage, is our service copies. So I have a preservation copy and a service copy, and we do that because we're not currently using the dip function of Archivematica, but rather the service copies are what our IT department basically uses to get that content and adjust it and create the derivatives, so forth, to push into the various platforms we use. But this is just a quick overview of what that looks like. And here's a little snapshot of what our current archival storage tab looks like on Archivematica. We currently have about 13 terabytes of total content. And I say times 3 because, again, looking at the previous diagram, you have my preservation storage copies, service copies, and of course the ones in the cloud. So it really becomes 3 times that amount. But about 250,000 files that have been indexed currently. And the little box at the bottom will show we're currently over 10,000 apes in Archivematica, which is kind of a little problem for us because this current default setting for Archivematica is 10,000 limit on queries. So we're trying to fix that, so I'm able to see beyond the 10,000 limit. I just get an error message right now, but that's one thing we're working through right now. I have about that same amount of content in queue waiting to go through Archivematica, so we could have a good 26 terabytes if I could push that all through right now, and then probably even another 26 or so just sitting in storage as legacy content and others not quite destined for digital preservation at this time. And that's currently where all our AV content is. So everything in Archivematica now, we've processed Archivematica, is not AV. It's all image-based. So everything, Archivematica is great. We are in it for the long haul. That doesn't mean there aren't some issues that we're trying to work around. A lot of our work, as I said, is external. So I do a lot of log and inventory work to keep track of what goes to Archivematica and goes to other destinations. Keep that all, excuse me, tracked and inventoried. There's lots of preparatory work before. As I said, the DIPs were kind of doing more external work on creating those dissemination packages and so forth. And Archivematica needs some adjustments, little things here and there that we need to fix. Like I said, the 10,000 limit on the query, and of course, there's just never enough time to do all that process work and push everything through on top of what we're digitizing and adding to our collection. So just need more time, right? So last slide, moving forward, 2020 and on, tackling larger legacy collections and making our Archivematica instance more interoperable with other systems here at the libraries, integrating some of those workflows, less of a parallel workflows and more integrated. So fully optimize or utilize our cloud options, which we're in the process of doing, but we're not quite there. And then just kind of codifying some of the documentation that we started earlier But as things change and move, it kind of becomes outdated and needs to be updated, and some things actually written. So that's currently where we're at right now, and I'll leave it at that. All right.
Hi, can everyone hear me? I'm going to assume that if no one is telling me, wait, we can't. Hello?
You sound great, Juliana.
Okay, awesome. Hi, I'm Juliana. I'm the digital archivist at UTSA Library Special Collections. I have kind of a different presentation that I'm wanting to give. In the year since we had camp last November, I've been doing some processing, but I've also had a few opportunities to talk to others about how we're using Archivematica, which we've been using since 2016. And overall, I get the vibe that there are some people who are wanting to use it, but they're still kind of waiting for implementation, sometimes for some very good reasons. But I want to make an appeal to those who might be on the fence that this is totally possible, even with few resources and just one person. So I went with the theme of choose your own adventure stories. Those beloved books that might have been a part of some of our childhoods. It was definitely a big part of mine. And in these books, you can make choices and follow paths to your own endings, which might seem scary, but remember, it can be fun and it can involve many different adventure paths. So let's turn the page. If I could advance the slide. All right, so choices that you'll face. There are many and it can seem scary. Like the first page in these silly books remind us, our choices are on us and we should think carefully about it. But real talk, there's no need to be so dramatic about it. One mistake certainly won't be your last. It's part of your journey, okay? Some first choices that you might have to make. Things like system setup. Can you do this out of the box and host it yourself, like A&M is doing? Or do you need a turnkey solution for a quick start, which is kind of what we did? What are you processing? Are these archival collections, things that are at a collection level? Are they more like library things like ETDs? Is it stuff that's at an item level? How are you structuring these, on your end? And what kind of metadata and documentation do you have? Do you have administrative metadata, like deeds or paperwork agreements that can go with all of this? Do you have any descriptive metadata? And it's okay if you don't. To what level do you have your metadata and what quality? And then also, what's your timeline? That's important too. Our first adventure, this is how we got started. We did some testing and we went with Archives Direct, which is a really quick kind of turnkey solution that is provided. It's using Archivematica and DuraCloud together. We started with standard directories of digitized photographs. These are thousands of TIFFs. You can see an example of one of the directories. We just process the TIFFs, not the JPEGs. Those go into Content Dion. We have basic Dublin Core descriptive metadata that we've created for these photographs. It's in a big spreadsheet, and it's still a work in progress. We included digitized copies of deeds and other rights documents. We have like license agreements, that sort of thing. And our timeline was as soon as possible because these are irreplaceable files. Our network is controlled by university level OIT and their policies, and we wanted to make these files safer. And we had me to work with this. So arranging your directory structure. What are your dependencies, if there are any? What's your structure? Does it come from your department or does it come from donors? Do you have bags or do you just have standard directories on your network like we did? And also, where's it going? Does it need to align with your content management system? Or are you creating like DIP structures for access? If you decide to include the metadata, is it complete? Doesn't that matter? Do you want to embed it into items, which is a really cool, nifty thing that you could do in Archivematica? Or do you want to apply it to the directory or to the ape? Or do you want to go even more meta and link it to other apes as an ape using AIC, which is something that we did? So there are lots of decision points, like processing configurations that can change based on the materials that you're ingesting, tools that have to be tested or at least researched, with varying outputs and speeds of work. Storage options is another big thing to think about. The kinds of files that you have impact that, the security needs, backups, monitoring, access options, all of that good stuff. There's lots of choices, but don't fear. Your choices probably won't lead to you being, say, buried alive or eaten by a cat or shrunk. You're just processing files. So take a deep breath and find your balance. Remember MPLP. Think about levels of processing. It's generally an improvement to take collections material out of, say, the highly acidic liquor boxes that a donor dropped them off in and put them into record cartons with labels and barcodes, right? So that's kind of what you're doing. You're moving it to a safer area, and you're not totally done. If you don't have time to refolder, that's okay. You can come back later and refolder, right? So remember, you can reprocess, and especially with running Archivematica's microservices, you can learn a lot more about the files that you have and any future needs. But also you could just start over too. These are copies of digital files, and you won't be doing irreversible damage. So you can iterate, you can begin again, and no worries, you will escape safely, and while I can't guarantee that you'll get rich, you will learn more about your process and about your files too. So success! For the end of our first journey, we got our apes stored in DuraCloud. We have 121 of them. They're nestled in zips, wrapped with loads of technical, structural, administrative, and descriptive metadata that they didn't have before. They're backed up regularly and monitored. They are safer now. Other success, I consider success, we found a bug. There's an issue with how Archivematica creates AICs, and it's cool that we found it because it's an opportunity for us to help develop this open source software, which is a yay thing. Next adventures that we're going to take, we're looking at AV collections, maybe some oral history audio and some small videos that accompany those. We're still testing Born Digital. But I think the really big success that I'm so happy to be a part of, it looks like the slide got a little bit wonky, sorry about that. We have A-TEX, there's the logo, I guess, for A-TEX. We have a Google group and we have a list. We're here to talk to people, and some of us, including UTSA, have shared our processing configurations so that others can look at the hows and whys and the choices for this, and definitely ask us any questions about it. So yeah, just remember, any choice is a success. It's forward-moving progress. Apes make your collection safer, and you know more about them. So you can go back and re-adventure. So keep reading and rereading to learn even more and have many incredible and daring experiences while you're doing it. The end.
All right. My name is Bethany Scott. I'm the Digital Projects Coordinator at the University of Houston in Special Collections. And so I'm going to be talking about where we are with Archivematica right now and how it's evolved over the past year. So 1 year ago, we had Archivematica Camp here at UH, and this was kind of where we were with Archivematica and with our digital preservation program at that time. We started using Archivematica in production in February 2018. So at this time last year, we had been using Archivematica for a little over 6 months. And with our implementation of Archivematica, we are transferring each digital object as an individual package. And at this time last year, we had stored about 1,200 objects in preservation storage. And I had these ideas of future work. So adding Born Digital archives to the preservation storage and working on some interface improvements or customizations for the Archivematica web interface. So where are we now, 1 year later? So as of November 2019, we have 1,959 objects a little less than 29 terabytes in preservation storage, and we have over 20,000 files indexed. But about that future work, those ideas that I had, well, they got put on hold for now because we are about to start migrating our digital collections from Content DM into our new Access repository that we're developing locally. And so not only will the migration process add a lot of new content into preservation, but it's also revealed some new information that is impacting some of the content that we already have stored in Archivematica. So to go along with Juliana's choose your own adventure analogy, some of those decisions that we made previously, it turns out we have to go back again. So here are some of those impacts on preservation. These are the access and preservation workflow changes that we're going to be making. So the first step, we are changing our file naming conventions. So our new file naming conventions for all of the image files that we're producing locally are going to include the digital object ARC identifier. And we decided to use the ARCs for file names because the ARCs are both unique and persistent. So that's a big improvement over all of our previous file naming conventions. But if I change the file name for an access file, I then also want to change it for the corresponding preservation file so that if I have to refer to it later, I know that it's a match. And so there are a few collections that we have already stored that if we change the file names, that means I'm going to be deleting the already stored packages in Archivematica, renaming all the files as a part of the migration work, and then re-ingesting the collection. So as a second example, we have 3 collections that are in preservation storage that will have download restrictions in our new access system. And so basically, either due to copyright concerns or donor agreements, things like that, we can't allow patrons to download a high-res access file for those collections. But we found out with our current implementation of IIIF, we can only upload a low-res access file into the repository. And so we still want to keep the high-res access files in case we need them later. So I'm going to be changing the preservation packages to include all of those high-res access files as service files in Archivematica. But again, that means deleting the old packages and then re-ingesting them. And then finally, this one is a little bit abstract, but we have also switched up the data model for how we represent digital objects in archive space. So we used to have 2 digital objects in archive space, one with the access permalink and one with the preservation permalink. So we basically had double the number of digital objects in archive space. And we decided to change it so that now we're just going to have 1 digital object in archive space, and those 2 permalinks are going to be in there as different file versions. So for all the digital collections that we did the old way with 2 digital objects, we're going to be manually editing those in archive space to combine them into 1. And so here is a little snapshot of all of our collections that we currently have stored in Archivematica. I started kind of highlighting the collections that fall into these different categories of rework to kind of start planning and visualizing exactly how many of our packages are going to be affected. The good news is the green and blue, those are the file renaming and the download restrictions. Those are the ones that actually need to be deleted from archival storage and re-ingested. But as far as like the overall number of packages, it's only about 1/10 of what we have stored already. And all of those ones that have the archive space digital object manual editing, those are in yellow, but at least we don't have to change anything in Archivematica for all of those. And so finally, just a few takeaways. Try to consider all different kinds of use cases. So for example, when we decided on our new file naming conventions, we thought about, well, what if we have an object that's in preservation but not in access? How will that impact the file name? Or will there be differences between our image collections and our AV collections because we have two different access repositories for those? So thinking through all of those different scenarios is hopefully going to be setting us up so that we don't have to make as many changes in the future. That being said, it's important to be flexible. We didn't know that we would need to change the structure of our preservation packages until we found out about those IIIF limitations. And so we only got that information after we already started storing our packages in Archivematica. So ultimately, the big takeaway, nothing is set in stone. All of this rework that we're doing now is ultimately just a part of the long-term management of our digital objects. And so our next steps, we're going to be tackling those rework tasks, deleting and re-ingesting the selected collections. We're going to continue adding migration collections to preservation storage in Archivematica. And we are also going to be conducting an audit of our preservation storage in 2020 as mandated by our digital preservation policy. So that's it for me. I am going to hand it over to Lauren.
Great, thank you, Bethany and everybody. This is Lauren, and I've been frantically taking notes because it's always good to learn from people, and I don't have a theme. I don't have a theme for this PowerPoint, but there is a cat meme coming up, so hold on to your chairs. I just wanted to say a couple of things that I noticed that I have in common with everybody who's spoken so far, which is that it's a long time frame arc, right? So I kind of want to share this with some of my stakeholders who've been like ready for this work to happen, because it takes a long time. It's just, and kind of with that is the labor, I think more than one person said, with only one person or with limited time. So it's also nice to kind of get that validation that it's not, just us. So I wanted to, let's see, I titled it Archivematica at Texas State, Microservices and Microsteps. And that's kind of what I meant about the microsteps. We don't have a ton in Archivematica. I feel like the steps that we've taken have put us in a good place, and we can always back up, as everybody said. So sorry, my name's Lauren Goodley. I'm an archivist at the Whitliff Collections, and I was hired in 2012 here, and in 2014, another archivist and I created the Digital Preservation Working Group. So never sure when to use I and we, because some of the decisions I make for the collections I'm responsible for, the vast majority of the decisions are made by this group. So there's kind of one of us and there's kind of 6 of us, which I love, is wonderful. So we had 3 and now 4 departments represented in the Digital Preservation Working Group. That's the University Archives, the Whitliff Collections, Digital and Web Services, which includes the IR, and we recently added acquisitions. And from the Digital and Web Services, I don't know why I pulled this out, I should be looking at my notes. There is, we have librarians, archivists, a department head, a digital media specialist, and a programmer on this Digital Preservation Working Group. So that's pretty sweet. That's a lot of knowledge in one room. And those are those internal stakeholders, or whatever you call them. So a lot of what we do is communicating with each other. Like the programmer, Jason, and I, sometimes it takes us a while to talk about the same thing, and that's okay. It just, it's something that needs to be done. sorry, I'm looking to see if I started my time, which I didn't. So yeah, 2014 was a long time ago, but that's okay. It takes a long time. We created a digital preservation policy document, and we recently made a request for distributed storage, which is a big deal here because it just is. People here like enterprise solutions. They don't like, you know. Anyways, it's something different. So we'll see what happens with that. That's the background. Why Archivematica? The short answer is that that's, you know, the option. But we went through the steps and talked about all the different things that we could do as a group. The other options were to do by hand every microservice. Not ideal. I still don't know how to extract or embed metadata. The other option was Preservica. It's super expensive, and we didn't like that you can't really tell what's happening to your materials once you hand them over. And there was a Spanish company, I think from Spain, maybe Italy, but I think Spain, that we heard from, but we wanted a community of practice, and Archivematica had that. We knew that we needed to learn a lot from each other. So we talked about all of this. We talked about the pros and cons, which are that all of these microservices are automated, that they're transparent, which was super important to me. I felt like I had a certain amount of digital preservation knowledge, and I wanted to be darn tootin' sure that that was happening to the materials. And so I'll talk about this in a minute, that you can opt in or out of any of the microservices. They don't just automatically run, unless you want them to. The cons were that at the time we were looking at this, it only ran on Ubuntu, and as I was saying, our TR department, IT department, was not okay with that. So once we got a Red Hat instance, we were able to move forward. And then looking back, I should have really made it a point to the stakeholders that, yes, this is a free tool, and it's not going to cost you a cent, and it's going to cost a lot of labor. And I wish I had pushed that point a little more, because, you know, that's what it is. And that, I think the other thing that's hard for me to communicate up is that I can't just do what U of H or what UTSA or what Texas A&M is doing, like everybody has. So anyway, all those decisions have to be made and then implemented. So there's the cat. So I can't really speak to the back-end setup. Our programmer did that, and just suddenly it was available for me, which was lovely. So some of the decisions that I made for the collections I'm responsible for was what is an item, which Bethany just spoke to. For still image and audio, I'm calling it a collection, and for video, a file, and that's just for size purposes. I don't think I could run more than one video at a time. They're just too big. So that's the decision there. I haven't dealt with bags or anything. I'm just dealing with the files. The metadata makes, I had to decide how much we needed at an item level and how much we needed at a content level, at a collection level. You know, fun decisions like that. And then here, just that we got here as a group, but here we're sort of dividing, that the University Archives, the Whitlock Collections, and the Institutional Repository might make different decisions about what an item is and what metadata is needed. We decided that we would have different Archivematica instances so that we could make those different choices more easily. The APEs, I still call them AIPs for fun sometimes, are stored in different locations for privacy purposes. And of course, we'll have different workflow and decision making along the way. So just FYI, this is a little thing of the administration part of the of Archivematica. So you can, there's a default, but you can edit it. Ha! So I got in there and edited it because I just wanted to. So we don't normalize any files. All our files are digitized. They don't need to be normalized. So that was something that came up on I think it was an Archivematica listserv recently. So the community practice is really useful. And I also got real deep with you have to choose a compression level and a compression algorithm, and that was hurting my brain. But I got to a point where people convinced me that it was a good thing. So that it didn't really affect the files, yada yada. I can't remember. I could look back in the listserv. That is documentation to come. I'm out of time. This is how you prep folders. It would be lovely to figure out how to automate this. I'm sure somebody smarter than me can do it. But I just go to the Archivematica transfer directory on the server, and I make these 3 folders. I make a metadata CSV. And then with the submission documentation, I put in the project plan, which will have the specs, and then item level metadata. This guy only includes like 5, like the 5 most important, and then this includes all the descriptive metadata we have. And then in the objects, like Bethany was saying, we have a preservation file and then a mezzanine file. Was there anything interesting I wanted to say? No, because I'm running out of time. Oh, lots of documentation. Y'all can read this later. There's a lot of Excel sheets. At some point, they'll be made into something more useful, but right now I'm just trying to keep documentation of everything I can think of for next time, and then, for codifying that, as someone said. The next steps are I've been having trouble doing audio. I can't figure that one out. The video's running fine, the audio's not. I'm going to have a spring intern, so hopefully I'll get to rack up some AIPs. And I got a lot of good ideas already, so maybe I'll get some more in the Q&A. This is me at the bottom. I'm sure you can find my email because it didn't come out right. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic. Sean, Bethany, Juliana, and Lauren, that was awesome to hear from you all. If y'all have questions, again, please do put them in the chat. Now is the time for it for our first set of speakers. While I wait, I see that someone is typing. That's exciting. Oh, great. I'll hold my own question because I do see that we have people typing, which I'm excited about. I feel like questions in webinars are clapping in webinars. All right, so let's see, was wondering about archiving websites. That's what we're interested in doing. So is anyone putting the websites that they have archived using some other software, is anyone running those through Archivematica from our speakers?
I'll say at A&M we just started doing that, just barely. So we just preserve work files from our instance of Archive It. Our digital archivist provides me a crawl of an online collection or whatever what website or web content needs to be preserved. He provides me that work file, and I add it to the overall collection and preserve it as such.
Thanks, Sean. I see Kim is typing too, so I will wait for Kim's question.
While Kim is typing, I wanted to add. Oh my goodness. Can you guys hear me? Okay, sorry, there was a bunch of feedback. I'm just going to add that, you know, we have an Archiveit subscription. We aren't getting our work files out. That's something that we want to do like immediately. But that's going to be another giant dependency to think about because some of our collections in Archiveit are massive, and the work files are going to be massive. So I don't know what that's going to, how we're going to tackle that with Archivematica, but we'll stay tuned.
Yeah, that's something that definitely came up at our Web Archiving Texas meeting last week at Baylor. It definitely seems to be a massive problem that folks who are doing web archiving are not actually preserving outside of usually Archiveit, but other systems as well. So they're not actually putting their web archives or their works into digital preservation storage. And so I think that's one thing that the group we started last week will start to tackle. Oh, and great. And here we have a question from Kim. Thank you, Kim. So they need to access master copies of digitized images on a regular basis in response to patron requests. Does anyone else have this need? And if so, how are you using the packaged APEs for that?
We have this situation, and we don't really have a great solution yet. We are just keeping a copy of our mezzanine or service level files that we will use to fulfill patron requests on our local storage. But one of my goals with adding them as service files in Archivematica is that they could then be accessed as DIPs in the future. So we haven't gotten to the point of fulfilling requests that way yet, but it's something that I'm looking forward to. So yeah, stay tuned on that too.
And Sean, I believe you said that you keep service copies as well, right?
Correct. That sounds a lot like what Bethany mentioned, but having a server space that is just dedicated to sort of the archival copy where we can provide that up to a patron or some other unit within the libraries when they want that content. We do that a lot actually to provide content for a platform that's being brought up, some sort of discovery platform. We will provide the content, and then usually there's some sort of adjustment, like some XML that needs to go with it, or some derivatives that need to be created, or such. So that's how we're dealing with it. Once it goes through Archivematica, it's pretty much dark for us, and we just keep it for so the emergency type situation. We use those service copies as to fulfill all needs, internal and external to the library.
Kim, I want to speak if I can. This is Lauren, and yes, we need the master copies. That's yeah, we can't just make them dark. So my plan, and I'll get back to you on this, is to, once we have, and I guess this is what we're doing now, is that we're keeping the AIPs locally, and they're through Archivematica, they're super easy to download. So, and it's actually pretty easy to search. But I have all that documented anyway. So if somebody wanted something, I could be like, give me 2 minutes, let me go download that for you, and I'll have it for you. So that is something that we've worked in, that are, we keep the APEs locally so that they'll be, secure APEs or whatever, but that will also have those master copies because we need them too.
That's awesome. Thanks, y'all, for those questions. We want to move on to Sarah. I want to reiterate, though, that is absolutely good practice and recommended practice in digital preservation, that no matter what system you're using as your digital preservation system, you absolutely want to keep a local copy always. And that is considered definitely good practice. Maybe even, and I don't usually go this far, but maybe even considered best practice at this stage. So with that, thanks again for your questions. We'll have some more time at the end, but I'm going to go ahead and hand over to the wonderful Sarah Romkey from Artefactual Systems to talk with us a little bit about kind of current status and what's going on with Archivematica.
Hi, thanks so much for that introduction, and thanks so much for having me. I'm always happy to give a bit of an update about what's been going on. First, I'll do the required "you can hear me, right?" check. Someone confirm you can actually hear me.
Yes, you sound great.
Great, thank you. So I was just putting together some thoughts about this and realizing that, yeah, it's been a year since the Texas camp, and that's been actually a pretty big year at Artefactual. Quite a bit has changed, so I'm going to go over some stuff about like Artefactual as the organization, and some stuff about Archivematica, and kind of what's been going on and where things are headed. Just very quickly, for those maybe not totally familiar with Artefactual Systems, we're the company that maintains Archivematica as software. So Archivematica, as you know, is free and open source software, but it does need a home. It needs to be maintained, and we're the primary developers on the software. And we own the code, but we make it open source. So Artefactual has been changing and growing. We've had a number of new hires. So we had a new developer, Douglas Cerna, works with us based in El Salvador. In February, Justin Simpson, who was previously the technical director of Archivematica, became the managing director, which is a new title. He took over from Evelyn McClellan, who decided to step down as president of the company, but Justin decided to take on a different title. So Justin is basically has replaced Evelyn in that role, but we've structured things a little bit differently. We've had a couple of new systems archivists. Sarah Mason, third Sarah of the company, was hired this year. She's based in the UK. And just very recently, in the last few weeks, we hired Amaya Rodrigo out of Spain as a systems administrator, and Jennifer Roberts, our most northerly staff member, works out of the Yukon as a systems archivist. We've been changing our organizational structure a bit as well. So Justin Simpson, as I mentioned, is now the managing director of the company, and working very closely with him. Kelly Stewart is the director of archival and digital preservation services. We have two management team members who help out our clients on the support side of things, Darren Craze, in terms of project management and delivery, Joel Simpson, and then myself and Dan Galeen as the program managers for the two open source projects that we support, Archivematica as well as Access to Memory, or ATOM. In terms of governance of the company, we have, and this has sort of always been in place, but just sort of solidified it a little bit more and are just sort of like highlighting a little bit so that people understand this a little bit better. We have a steward ownership model. So the governance team is made up of the current shareholders who are listed here. You'll note that all of these people actually work for the company. Evelyn now has taken on the title of senior analyst. Justin's the managing director. Peter Van Garderen, the founder of the company, is also working as a senior analyst, and David Yu is working as a senior developer. This, I think, is maybe a little unique and kind of important in a way that our shareholders are very in tune with what's going on in the company and the needs of employees and the needs of the community. We operate the company with profits as a mean to an end, not as an end in itself. And the governance team is responsible for maintaining this as a sort of a guiding principle of our company. As we like to say, we're in the game to keep playing the game. We just want to keep helping people preserve their digital content and provide access to it. So some of the business activities that Artefactual Systems undertakes, we have client programs and support, giving services to clients, hosting and maintenance and support, and we've always done these things. I'm going to talk a little bit later about some potentially new ways of delivering these kinds of services. We do development projects, and that means that we have to manage those projects. And we also do things like consulting and data migration. We steward the open source projects. Archivematica and Atom require maintenance and attention as open source projects unto themselves. We need to keep developing these services so that we can keep the lights on and keep employing all these great people who we love to work with. So business development and financial stability are activities that we need to undertake as well. So now more about Archivematica specifically. So if you've been following Archivematica for a number of years, or if Courtney's thinking back to her days with the project, you may have noticed in the last couple of years we've been on a slightly more frequent release cycle, and we're actually, believe it or not, still not quite where we want to be, but we've made improvements and we're happy with our progress so far. So in any given calendar year, you can expect our aim is 3 major releases. We've gotten ourselves up to 2 with a number of patch releases in between. And what this means is it means that we're keeping on top of technical debt. We don't have a lot of development that's happened but not been integrated into the project at any given time. And it means that users aren't waiting as long for bug fixes. So this has been a really important goal of ours, to make the release process more smooth and more consistent. And what we want to get to next is a place where we can kind of publicly declare release dates way ahead of time so that you can anticipate what's going to be happening and plan some of your activities around that. Because I know a number of you, whether you work with us at Artefactual Systems or if you're maintaining your own Archivematica or you're working with another service provider, having an idea of when you might be looking at upgrade schedules is, an important thing for you to be able to predict. So we're trying to be a little bit more predictable. If you're on the lookout for the next release, we are planning the 1.11 release for around January, February of next year. We're very close to finishing up coding for that. So in terms of our most recent major release, there were a number of improvements, and I won't go through them in great detail, but some of the stuff that I think was, well, it's all kind of interesting, but some of the stuff that I think was maybe particularly interesting, there's been quite a lot of improvement in terms of transfer backlog. Not so much in terms of what you experience on that backlog screen in Archivematica, but what's happening behind the scenes is your transfer package, if you've put things in backlog, is much more preservable. It's a bag now. It has a robust METS file. It's not just sort of like a directory of stuff sitting on disk. So this is good news if you suppose you might be building up a backlog and not going to do anything with it for a while. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's like having it's stored in AIPs, but it's much, much more preservable. It's movable. You could index it in a new Archivematica pipeline, so your backlog can persist beyond your installation of Archivematica. And we did make some improvements also to the appraisal tab. It should scale better now, and you can also use the tagging functionality to start a SIP. If you've used that functionality at all, then you know what I'm talking about, and if not, you can give it a play sometime, or feel free to ask me questions or ask questions on the user forum, and we can help you through that. We also had a number of integration things. If you're an Avalon user, there's workflows now that work with Avalon. We did a lot of improvement to automated testing, which is really important to Archivematica as a project, and just in terms of taking care of technical debt and that kind of thing. What you can expect in 1.11, there will be some support for Python 3. Python is a major dependency in Archivematica that needs to be upgraded, and we will be releasing part 1 of at least 2 or maybe more, but we have made good progress and we're happy with where we're getting with that. There'll be improved ability to get reporting information out of Archivematica, not directly in Archivematica, but you'll be able to better utilize other open source tools for reporting. With some of our clients, we've been using Grafana and Prometheus to get metrics and things out of Archivematica. Scalability enhancements, a pronom update, and you may have seen this announced on our user forum. We're planning to remove the quarantine functionality. We're not aware of anybody who actually uses it. It's not really necessary in good digital preservation practice, so we feel pretty confident removing that. We have gotten basically no feedback on that proposal. Archivematica has grown quite a lot. We needed 2 slides to show you this list of people who are either new Archivematica users or old Archivematica users, such as the Computer History Museum, but new as an Artefactual client. So we're hearing from lots of people all around the world who are using Archivematica. It's very exciting. We've been implementing a number of process changes. This is kind of old news now, but managing the issues or bugs and feature requests all in one place, that was in place for almost 18 months now, I guess. But in addition to that, we've added a repository of what we call architectural decision records, or ADRs, and this is a record of how we've made kind of overarching architectural decisions in Archivematica, things like the removal of quarantine. So there's an ADR that you can read that in 5 years' time, if somebody says, like, didn't there used to be a quarantine functionality? Where did it go? Then now we have a place where you can go in and understand the evolution of things like that over time. Making improvements to what we call the AMOATs, the Archivematica Automated User Acceptance Tests, and this makes the release process a lot easier and better. It means that we can release more frequently. We've been trying to give more public visibility into process and more invitation to discussion, so we're pretty open about like what we're doing with the Python 3 upgrade, and if you're on our the user forum, the Google group, then you would have seen some recent discussion around normalization and how Archivematica manages normalization rules as defaults, and some discussion around that. In terms of having what most software projects would consider like a proper roadmap, I would still call that a work in progress, but we are working towards that goal. We do have a Trello board where you can see like kind of what we're working on now and what's sort of still in the wish list stage, but you know, we'd like to have something a little bit more formalized, and that's sort of what's next for a process change. So in terms of, and I'm looking at the time and realizing I need to wrap this up pretty quickly, so I'm going to skip ahead a little. So in terms of the upcoming things that we're looking at in terms of Artefactual offering Archivematica services, we're trying to evolve a product support program that will assist with roadmap development and maintenance, and really geared towards organizations that want to do their own Archivematica development but have had challenges doing that. We want people to not get in situations where they're on a fork of the code. We're also looking at something along the lines of an enterprise partner program, people who want to move their digital preservation practices from project to program and work on really large scale institutional levels, including like consortia and like national organizations and service providers as well. I'm just going to skip right ahead, and we have a couple of minutes for questions.
Okay, y'all, just go ahead and type your questions into chat. I will tell you all that I, representing Texas Digital Library, have been in contact with the folks at Artefactual about figuring out how we can accommodate some kind of consortial program in Texas. That conversation is ongoing with Kelly Stewart. So I will keep updating the Texas Archivematica user group about that as we move along. And Sarah, thank you so much. That was really great to get all those updates. It's a big change from when I was with Archivematica, and when I started there were 5 of us.
I know. It's crazy, isn't it? Oh my gosh.
It is, yeah.
So there's a question about the use case for Archivematica and Avalon integration. It's a very lightweight integration, and it utilizes the automation tools, which is a set of scripts that sit outside of Archivematica. And in 1.10, the basic, I think in 1.10, it's an Archivematica first kind of scenario. So basically you can use some specialized automation tools to get content through Archivematica and prepare a dip that would go to Avalon, because Avalon has specific requirements around like manifests and that kind of thing. We're also working for a future release on the other direction. So if you have content in Avalon and you want to export it and save it through Archivematica, which of course you could do in a manual way now, but we've been working on automation tools so that you can do it in a bit more of a programmatic way. Hopefully that answers your question. And yeah, the consortium question, like Courtney says, is very much still under discussion. You can imagine probably a number of ways that could work, but we are also very motivated, invested in working with y'all on something that works for both parties. Would love to support you more in your Archivematica use.
And we are right at 2 o'clock, so we could probably squeeze one more question in if there was one. I definitely, welcome to our Tennessee neighbor for joining us anytime. I want to thank all of our speakers again today, and I want to thank you, Sarah, for joining us. This will be recorded, so if you missed anything, you could go back and watch it again later. We'll provide it in a closed caption version on our YouTube, and we'll also put it into the Texas Digital Library's repository. Additionally, excuse me, if you haven't yet joined the Texas Archivematica user group, please do so and talk to us. We love talking about Archivematica in Texas. Thanks again for joining us today, everybody. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and shut us down. And thanks for all the thanks in chat.